My wife's vacation in Bali was a cheap fest with locals, and now that I'm demanding an open marriage or a divorce, she's begging for forgiveness. We've had a DB, dead bedroom, 4 years, and it's gotten so bad that even I have lost my libido for the last 10 years, except for during company. My wife and the women in our friend group, most of whom are postmenopausal, go on a girls' trip to Bali for 1 week in August. Their mantra is, "What happens in Bali stays in Bali." And it's their shared joke whenever we're all together as couples, and the topic of Bali comes up. The first year my wife went, she told me how they would get scooter rides for peanuts down to the beach and back. She mentioned that the riders would try to chat them up and wanted to come back with them to Australia to live. It was told in good humor, framed as just a flirtatious attempt with mature female tourists. After that, when she returned, I would get just a brief summary of a week spent relaxing and dining. This year, however, I got a call from one of the other husbands who said his wife had pocket-dialed him that night, unaware that her phone was even on during their conversation. She and the other ladies were excitedly discussing something he found shocking. He overheard them comparing notes about men they had been hooking up with, and by the sound of it, these men were annual regulars. He suggested that all the women were involved. I took in what he relayed, but then he asked me not to confront my wife just yet. He wanted to speak to the other husbands first, so we could make a plan. My heart sank, but I also wondered if he had truly heard everything clearly, especially if the women were all talking as excitedly as he described. I thought there was a chance he had misinterpreted things. Each night, my wife would call me at 10 p.m. to touch base and share goodnight wishes. That night, when she rang, she sounded no different than usual. I dearly wanted to ask her specifics, but instead, I just asked, "How was your day?" She said they did their usual routine of pool, drinks, beach, shopping, lunch, siesta, dinner, and then drinks before heading back to their rooms. The next day, the husbands had a group call. One husband, Ted, eventually caved under the building attention and spilled the beans. He knew more than the rest of us and revealed what that week in Bali was really about. Basically, it was a cheat week, and Ted, for his part, was okay with it. He explained that the women had arranged for the same locals, whom they had distilled down over the years as their Bali husbands, to take care of them for the week. Ted said that not all the women slept with their Bali husbands, but they all participated in intimate massages, cuddling, kissing, dancing, and partying. He implored us to see it from their perspective, as a release with no ill intent toward us. I was enraged, telling them that I had endured years of sensual neglect, only to discover it had been reserved for some Bali bonk. For all I knew, they could have given us STDs. Ted quickly defended himself, explaining that the women who slept with the men had mutually committed to safe practices, as they wanted nothing less. We all wanted to know which of the wives had gone that far, but he refused to say and claimed he was unsure. Then, to my amazement, another husband, Greg, volunteered that it was karma for him. He had cheated on his wife due to their dead bedroom issues and had suspected she knew, but she never confronted him. Another husband downplayed the situation in a racist manner, dehumanizing the Bali men. He said it was good luck to them if that's what they wanted, and it seemed he was no saint either. That left the remaining 3 husbands, myself included, stunned. So much for the brotherhood. We decided to meet after work the next day. It seems like one of the individuals involved informed the girls because right after the group call ended, my phone rang with my wife in tears. The same was true for the others. I told her to save her breath and that we would talk in 2 days when she returned. We never had our after-work meet-up as there was now no point. I kept reliving my marriage and the reactions of the 3 men, unable to comprehend their meek acceptance of the situation. Ted had asked us, while defending the girls, what we really expected from them. According to him, men always exaggerated their behavior during boys' trips, and while I concede that some people I knew did it, it wasn't true for me. By the time Saturday came and my wife came home, I was still angry but conflicted. Part of me was relieved that she was home. She was red from crying and tried to embrace me, but I couldn't bring myself to reciprocate. I needed to know if she had been sleeping with her husband before she could speak. I asked her how she could treat me so badly and then go and sleep with some younger exploited man from a third world country. I told her that she and the others were no better than the old men who traveled to Asia to exploit young girls, or even children. She pleaded with me to listen, but I hardened my stance. I continued to express my feelings until she yelled at me to shut up and listen. She admitted that it was indeed cheating. She claimed she was not the type to sleep with her guide. According to her, it was the 3 wives of the cucks who engaged in that behavior. Yes, she kissed and cuddled and received daily full-body massages with happy endings. Then she accused me of getting the same at Asian massage shops. I denied that I received any happy endings and pointed out that I claimed those massages on health insurance, so there was no way that sensual favors were involved. She says the guides took them to the beaches and shops and treated them more like servants than partners. She agreed that they exploited them in the process. She said it was just some fun and titillation, and that I could go to hell if she couldn't let her hair down at her age. I pointed out that her tears before were just theater, and that now she was gaslighting me about my reactions. She claims that she is upset that we all found out and that they knew it would hurt us, and for that, she is remorseful. But she is not taking a step back about the Bali trip being her time. I said, okay, then we now have an open marriage or no marriage at all. 2 can play this game. She was not having it. There was a lot of yelling and harsh words exchanged. I left, saying that I was off to start the new arrangement. She told me not to come home. Then I have been staying at my son's flat since even he and his 2 brothers think I am overreacting. So, I told them to let their partners join the Bali group. I've been a good husband, and my wife has been a good wife. Besides PIV intimacy, we have always shown deep emotional affection for each other and have been each other's rock. The things she claims she did in Bali are exactly what I do for her, and she for me. What am I not seeing? My rant yesterday garnered a lot of comments, and to those who think I am a cuck or that this is fake, GFY. My headspace is a mess right now, and I can't process all this. I left the house because it was the safest thing to do to avoid violence and keep myself out of trouble. I was a boxer, and if I lost control, I would be in a bad situation. I have never hit a woman, but I could feel myself losing self-control. If I were to see Ted right now, he would feel my pain. My adult sons are great and are doing their best to keep me calm. We are a family of hotheads, but we are not stupid. I will take a break from this post because the comments are amping me up at a time when I need to take stock with a clear head. It's my fault for posting. I'm not sure what I expected to happen. Story 2. So my fiancée, 32 female, doesn't want me 28 male to talk to her best friends at all before marriage. We have been dating for the last 2.5 years, and those 2.5 years have been mostly public. In the sense that both me and her like to post pictures or reels of ourselves from vacations or times together. We were very clear that we were in a relationship on Instagram. However, she doesn't have a lot of real-life followers from the office or personal life on her Instagram. She has around 7 or 8 really good friends who she meets on a regular basis and 1 cousin. We are both mature adults and decided to get married in the coming year, either in November or December. Since we started dating, I thought it would be better if I introduced her to my family. 2 months ago, I took her consent and decided to meet with my family at a good restaurant in the city. My family got to know her, and they liked her, deciding to fix the date for our wedding. But my GF said it would be too early for her to get married this year. So, we eventually decided to fix the marriage date for February 2025, 6 months from now. Usually, in my city, it's a requirement to book the marriage halls early enough to get a proper hall. I took her consent and discussed with my family, booking a hall for the marriage a few days later. She also went and booked a hall for her side of the party. It is normal to have parties from both the bride and groom side in our culture. So far, I have made her meet my family and 1 female friend of mine who lives in a different town with her BF. Both of the meetings were proper, well-planned meetings. She also met maybe another friend of mine accidentally in the mall. I, however, have never met her friends in that manner. Only once or twice. I met some friends by accident as I was driving my GF somewhere. 2 or 3 of her friends also hopped in, and we just spoke a few words as we traveled in the car. But her friends were aware that we were dating, of course. Now, a strange incident happened last week, which left me really confused. It was a text from a friend of hers on Instagram. Before this, I had never spoken to this friend of hers, except for only once a year back when my GF wasn't talking to me, as we had a fight. So, I texted this friend of hers and asked her politely to talk to my GF once, as she is a good friend. She said, "Okay, I will surely talk." I texted her friend only because I felt my GF back then was going through a lot of things, and probably she would need a friend to discuss them properly, as she had a huge financial loan, etc., and even had a fight with me and her family for some reasons. Shortly afterwards, I got a call from my GF regarding me demanding her friend on Instagram. She asked me very angrily to never talk to her again, to which I was surprised but complied, as our relationship wasn't so stable back then, and I gave her space to settle. After a while that day, I got a message from her friend saying, "Hey, sorry, I can't help you in this," and she blocked me on Instagram. I was okay and didn't react back, etc. So, this was last year's incident. Now, this same friend texted me suddenly last week as she was not able to reach my GF over call and was tensed about what was going on. I politely replied back, saying, "Hey, she's all right, probably busy with office work. I will inform my GF that you were trying to reach her." I called my GF and said her friend called, to which she was like, "Oh Lord. What? Why does she have to text you? Please block her on Instagram." I found it very weird to block the friend and immature at the same time, so I told her I wouldn't. So, my GF told me that if I wanted, her friend would block me. A few moments later, I saw that I was again blocked on Instagram by her friend. Actually, this time around, it made me a little angry, and I ended up texting her on her other Instagram handle. I told her, "Hey, how are you doing? I didn't like what you just did, and this is not a very respectable way to talk to someone." I also wrote, "If your husband has some self-respect, he should also not text my girlfriend when you guys are having issues." Then she replied, saying, "Hey, my husband, me, and her were in her life much before you came to her life." After that, I politely explained that I didn't mean to break their friendship and only wanted to make their bond better. I just felt disrespected for being blocked twice when I wanted to just talk to them once or get to know them. She didn't reply to this and informed my girlfriend. My girlfriend again came out angrily and was very angry with me, as I referred to her friend's husband. I felt that was the only logical way to express myself. I was serious about her, and I made her meet my family and friends. She had no family members, her parents also passed away, and her cousins live in other countries or far away. Now, her friends would be the ones who would be present at our wedding from her side. So I expected her to take me a little more seriously and maybe not ask her friends to block me, at least on Instagram. She often visits this female friend's house, and sometimes they have sleepovers. Sometimes they even throw parties together, like birthday celebrations or gatherings for other reasons. I have never forgotten to properly go out or meet any of her friends in an official, go out and meet, kind of sense. I've expressed to her a couple of times that her friend brings her husband and baby along in group meetings sometimes, so maybe I can also go along and meet them once. However, she is strictly against this. This blocking incident recently is seriously bothering me. She says that my ex-boyfriends had bothered her friends earlier as well, and she doesn't want these things to happen again. This probably would have made sense maybe like a year back, but now we are going to get married in 6 months. Even now, she's hesitant and says she will introduce me to them only after marriage. Also, when she gets married, these friends will probably have to help her make her side of the arrangements, as she has no one else. I needed to talk to them as well for our upcoming wedding preparations. I haven't spoken to my girlfriend since the last 2 days because of this, and she also is saying she is unsure of the marriage now that I've expressed this desire to meet her friends. She says that I will be controlling in nature in the future. I feel she will text me or call me back soon, but am I asking for the right thing by asking her to introduce me to her friends? What should I do? My girlfriend often visits her best friend's house, and sometimes they even drink and party, with her friend's husband also around, obviously in the house. My fiancé does the same, sleepovers or alcohol parties with another friend couple of hers who are not yet married. I find it weird because she never lets me interact with her friends, and she even made a friend of hers block me last week because she texted me. I have raised this concern with my fiancé and said, I think I should get to know your friends at least once now that we have a wedding in 6 months. But she is reluctant and says I can only meet them after our marriage. What do you think I should do next? Am I correct? Update. A few days back, I posted about how my girlfriend asked one of her best friends to block me on Instagram. It hasn't been long since the blocking incident, but today I got a surprise to learn that my GF's mother, whom she always referred to as dead, is not really dead. So, a few weeks back, her best friend, who is already married with one kid, just texted me to know the whereabouts of my GF, as she was not able to reach her. Upon knowing that, my GF instantly asked me to block her, and I refused. But she then made that best friend block me, and the rest of the story is already there in the previous post. Since then, I was not able to trust her. My GF has always been telling me that there is no one in her family. She said she was a single child, and both her parents have passed away. She used to go to her countryside home every 3 to 4 months to visit her aunt, whom she said was the only person living there. But it always seemed a little off, and every time she went there, she stayed for at least 2 to 3 days. There were other things that seemed off too, like whenever she got a phone call, the contact name used to show his dad home. And a lady used to speak from the other end, whom she always referred to as her aunt. My GF has already met my parents, and we were supposed to get married in the coming February. My parents were hesitant about our marriage because they also didn't like this secrecy and the fact that my GF asked her best friend to block me. I just thought it to be generational differences and was trying to make my parents understand that maybe it's not that big a thing. But still, my parents didn't like this relationship. One day last week, they just went near my GF's office and asked one of her colleagues if she knew about her parents. But that colleague didn't know a lot about her family. I know this was not the right thing to do by my parents, but probably they could look at the suspicious things from an outsider's perspective, and they just wanted to keep me safe. I tried to make them understand later that it's wrong to take these things into the professional space, and they agreed not to ask there again, but also urged me to do proper research before taking a step towards marriage. So, I also tried to ponder upon my parents' POV and the whole situation from an outsider's perspective, and it was all making me grow impatient. My GF just wouldn't let me talk to any of her friends or relatives or follow them on social media. The reason she used to give for not introducing me to her family was that her family would never approve of her marriage, as inter-community marriages are still not quite accepted in some parts of India. However, she always used to say how open-minded her parents were, and that her whole upbringing was very modern, etc. She also used to cuss my family for being suspicious and backward, etc. Additionally, she used to say that if her parents were alive today, they would have definitely come for the marriage. My parents liked my GF initially when they met her the first time, and were very happy about the marriage. My father even offered to sponsor the marriage expenses for her side, as she wasn't doing great financially. But they got suspicious when she even made her best friend block me. So, all these combined made me very suspicious, and I decided to visit her countryside village house today, just to check. I went there, acting as if I was looking for someone else, and when I knocked on the door, her mother came out. I knew it was her mother because my GF showed photos of her mother to me earlier. It was truly like encountering a ghost. She looked like a fit and fine woman with a smile on her face and just looked like my GF. My GF and I are not talking properly since the day my parents went to her office. She called my parents crazy and whatnot for doing such a thing and was angry. She said people of my community are clever, cunning, and crazy, and do suspicious spying on people. But she never accepted that she said such a big lie to our family. While I admitted to her that it was wrong to ask at her office, it's not right for her either to talk like that about my family. When she was acting all suspicious, asking friends and family to block me, and faking her mother's death, I haven't spoken to my GF about this. I don't know what I should make out of this. Really, this was a very huge lie, and I don't see a valid reason for this either. Her father, as I confirmed from locals nearby, had actually passed away, and her mother was living there with her aunt, who was living in a different house just on the adjacent block. I just want to know if there could be any valid reason or judgment that can be applied to this scenario because I can't think of any. Her mother looked fit and fine to me, roughly around 50 to 60 years of age. To make things clearer, my girlfriend asked her best friend to block me on Instagram, claiming her parents were dead and only her aunt was alive. However, I discovered her mother is actually alive and living in her countryside home. This, along with other suspicious behavior, has led to trust issues. Now I'm unsure how to proceed as my girlfriend refuses to introduce me to her family and has been dishonest about significant details. Update. So it's been a month roughly. I posted my question about the weird behavior of my fiancée and her lying about her mother being dead today. I thought of posting a small update regarding the entire situation because a lot of you have been asking me for this after discovering that her mother was still alive. I was shocked for a few days, but gradually, I started to feel better. Although I was still eager to understand if I had done anything wrong, especially because I had seen both the good and bad sides of her. Now that some time has passed and I can think more clearly, though I do miss her at times, I reflect on what I know about her. She is someone who is naturally very compassionate and has shown great kindness toward animals, adopting or helping several street animals during the 3 years we were together. I've seen her experience happiness, sadness, and vulnerability. I've seen her good sides, but she has also been very harsh in her feelings towards my community, language, my parents, and even me. She clearly did things that were wrong, like discouraging interaction with her friends and lying about her mother being dead, among other things. Also, she lied to me another time in the past, which I consider the second biggest lie after the story about her mother's death. This happened one night when she arrived in my city a day earlier than planned from her village home. I found out because I had been calling her repeatedly. She said she wanted to surprise me, but we didn't end up meeting that day because she asked me not to come over, claiming she was tired and feeling unwell. Later that night, I called her multiple times, but she didn't pick up. The next morning, I went to her flat and discovered she wasn't there. A few hours later, she called me from a friend's phone and explained that she had gone to her friend's house because her friend's boyfriend had come to stay, and the watchman wouldn't allow another guy in the flat, so they pretended to be family relatives to cover it up. I forgave her for lying that time and chose to trust her again. In hindsight, it was another significant lie, the second biggest lie during our entire relationship, the fake mother's death still being the first. About 7 or 8 days ago, I noticed her repeatedly posting updates about how she was treated badly by me, how she was subjected to loneliness, and how I broke up with her. During that time, I attended a party with some guys and girls, and I saw her posting stories that directly defamed me, even though we had already broken up and I had every right to socialize with whomever I wanted. That day, I messaged her after seeing her status updates, partly because I was angry about what she had posted and partly because I wanted to know the real reason behind her lie about her mother's death. She responded with a lengthy message, but to summarize, she listed the following reasons. 1. She said she lied about her mother being dead because her mother never got her due respect in the past relationship. Her ex probably never let her stay at her mother's village house for more than 2 days. 2. Her ex-boyfriend was roaming around in the city with other girls and probably even cheated on her while her mother was in the hospital. 3. She thought her mother would get proper respect if she lied about her mother being dead, like her deceased father, who was treated respectfully after his death. According to her, none of the reasons she gave seemed serious enough for me to believe. I pointed out that about 90% of her reasons were related to her ex-boyfriend and asked her why she had to lie about her mother, especially since I had always been supportive regarding her family issues. I told her that her explanations didn't make any sense to me at all. She later told me I was wrong to say she has narcissistic personality disorder. I told that to her once earlier because she never feels sorry and does gaslighting to hide her own errors, etc. I read online that this could be symptoms of NPD and asked her to get expert help on this. She said she had consulted a psychologist who diagnosed her with CPTSD, which can cause narcissistic traits at times. Even so, I don't see how that justifies creating such a complex story about her mother to deceive both me and my parents, even going as far as to give a specific date for her mother's death anniversary. She was also upset with my parents because they found the whole situation suspicious and started asking questions. Although I feel bad and believe she may be dealing with some behavioral disorders, I also suspect there is a deeper, more complex secret, whether it's hers or her family's, that has led to all these stories. In my last conversation with her, I made it clear that, regardless of what she says, we are not in a position to restore the marriage. I don't want to hurt her by doubting her, nor do I want to hurt myself. Trust is something that cannot be rebuilt after everything that's happened. So, I asked her to just tell me the truth. However, nothing substantial came from her that I could consider. TLDR. My GF has not been able to give a proper, valid reason for faking her mother's death for 3 years, and I've decided to move on with my life without her as there's no way forward in this situation.